Okay, I'm just gonna wait a few more moments, see if anyone else shows up.
Oh, we're on YouTube. Cool.
Are we on more people?
I'm just gonna give it 2 more minutes because I'm looking through the list of who is currently here in the room, and yeah, some students. Yeah, nice.
Helpful.
Yeah, we have definitely some names I don't recognize, which is awesome, but it looks like Brian showed up. Brian, thanks for joining. All right, so I think we'll go ahead and start. So hi, everyone. I just want to thank you all for joining us today for SUNY Canton School of Engineering Technology, Canino School of Engineering Technology, our virtual alumni panel. My name is Paul Todd. I'm a lecturer in the School of Engineering Technology and chair for of the Engineers Week committee. So I'm excited for you all to get the chance to ask our alumni what the careers look like and the transition from student to working professional, what that was like for them. So before we get started, I would like to thank the other committee members. Actually, a bunch of them are currently here, which is awesome. And then I want to give a special thanks to Sheila Thompson for Career Services, and then Matt Mulkin, actually one of our speakers for promoting today's event, and to RJ, who's working in the background today and for setting up the Zoom meeting. So we're going to start the panel off with a brief introduction from each of our guests, and then I'll ask them just a kind of a prompt or initial question. And then we're going to open the floor to question from anyone in the audience. So without further ado, panelists, feel free to introduce yourselves. Jessica, you want to start?
Yeah, sure. I can start. Thinking about it anyway. Hey, everyone. So I'm Jessica Fisher. I'm a 2018 graduate of SUNY Canton's Mechanical Engineering Technology program. I am currently an up-tower repair engineer for wind turbines with GE Renewable Energy. I've been with them for just about a year now. And prior to that, I was in wind turbine drivetrain testing. So I specialize in gearbox repairs for our operational fleet globally.
Cool, thank you. Okay, Sheila?
I was going to say, I'll go next. I was about to go with Jessica.
Nice. Thank you for volunteering.
Yeah. My name is Sheila Trusente. I graduated with an associate's in civil engineering in 1996 from SUNY Canton. I've done pretty much a whole bunch of things. Currently, I'm working for Labella Engineers on a bridge project, highway construction project here in the city of Syracuse. I pretty much, the word civil pretty much tells you what you specialize in. You kind of have, you wear a lot of different hats in this type of industry when you pick civil engineering, but it's an awesome career.
Thank you. Inder, you're up.
Hey everybody, my name is Inder Sani. I graduated SUNY Canton with the Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering Technology back in 2018. I'm currently a project manager for Empire City Ironworks. We're a steel fabrication and installation construction company. Currently, I'm working. I've been working here for about 2.5 years, almost 3 in June. But yeah, I graduated mechanical engineering. I'm doing a lot of structural and civil engineering work. So it's kind of outside my wheelhouse when I first got here, but I grew to love it. I think I agree with Sheila. I'm in the civil field now, but wear a lot here.
Yep, that's
Nice. Matt, you're up.
Okay, hi, I'm Matt Mulkin. I'm the publications coordinator at SUNY Canton. I'm a 2011 graduate from the GMMD program, graphic and multimedia design. And I've been doing this 8 years or so now. And so I do a little bit of everything from design layouts to publications, logo design, illustration work. I just wear a lot of hats, do a lot of different things for the campus in general, but mostly working with admissions. That's kind of one of my focus areas.
All right, thanks. I see I'm just unmute Brian. Okay. Hi, Brian.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So hi, my name is Brian Deckert. Yep, sorry for joining a little late. I had a training exercise that went a little longer than expected, but I'm a 2012 graduate from SUNY Canton, an associate's in electrical engineering and a bachelor's in sustainable engineering technologies. I'm currently employed by the New York Power Authority as a planner for the test department. The short version is my job is to make sure that all of our regulatory requirements, both federal and regionally, are met, in that our 24 technicians, which are basically field engineers, have all the equipment and procedures they need to get all their work done, and that can include updating prints, procedures, coordinating with other departments, other utilities, to make sure all of our work gets done and the power stays on.
Thank you. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I think I'll mute everyone. And then if you look at the bot, it should be towards the bottom of your screen in reactions. You can raise your hand, panelist, and then I'll unmute you. And that way we just cut down on any sort of background noise. All right. So my leading question for you guys. I'll just mute you. So my leading question is, what does your typical workday look like? And if anyone wants to jump in first, just raise your hand.
Hey, yeah, so I have quite a varied workday. I basically do things like formal design reviews, engineering calculations, tool design when I'm not in the field, but I also do get the opportunity to go into the field and trial the processes and tools that I have developed for specific repairs. And then I get to work with the technicians and make sure that the project that I've been working on is a quality repair for the wind turbine that we're targeting. In addition, I am allowed to be in our shop environment. So we have what we call the Repair Development Center. And if there's anything I ever need to trial or test, I'm able to go into that shop and get hands-on exposure to all of the components that I could possibly need in order to do my repairs. So I do some desk work, but then also a lot of hands-on and a lot of field work as well.
All right. Thank you. Matt?
Mine is pretty simple. I show up and I check my email. So I never know what I'm going to get. So it could be, a layout for something. It could be a brochure, a postcard, a letterhead, a design with the mascot. It could be a logo. It usually revolves around checking my email and then going to work on whatever tasks I have for that day or bigger projects I have going on for one of the departments.
Cool. All right. Keep in mind that Brian is on video. Oh, okay. Well, thank you, RJ. All right, Sheila.
Hello. My typical day can change pretty much depending on the job and the same type of thing and what's on my desk. Well, I'll just talk about my typical day on an upcoming bridge project I'd be on is, I'll show up at 7 o'clock in the morning, meet the contractor out in the field, and I'm there every day, making sure that they're doing the job correctly as it was designed. And unfortunately, you'll always run into problems. So we're always thinking on our feet, the day changes. If you look to others, if you don't know the answer, but every day can be completely different, to be honest. And they're usually long hours. But it's nice when when it's all said and done, you've built a bridge or a roadway or what have you, or a culvert or, a creek project, you name it, it's a nice feeling at the end of the day when the project's finally done.
Yeah, and you have something to look at and test out yourself in your vehicle or whatever, right?
Yeah,
So,
and then actually I find it more interesting to go back 10 or 15 years later to see how it held up. To see if our engineering was really up to par, so to speak, as we thought at the time,
Yeah, great, thank you. And Brian, since you can't raise your hand, I'm just going to call you out. If you want to share.
That works for me. So my typical workday is a mix of both long range and short range planning. Because of the nature of our business, we sometimes, like for example, anything that's going to potentially affect the bulk electrical system, we got to take equipment out of service for any reason for the year 2022. We have to put in our schedule for all of that work for 2022 by April 1st. And so we've got a lot of equipment. We've got 33 large power transformers, 102 switch yard circuit breakers. And anytime one of those goes out of service, we got to make sure that that's all planned sometimes a year in advance, if not more. So sometimes part of my day will be going over, next year's stuff or even just 6 months out, just verifying something hasn't changed, coordinating with any outside utilities that we might need to work with, because some of our equipment does communicate with other utilities. And then also in the short term, I will have to go over let's say the work that's happening next week, part of my job is to make sure that all the technicians in the field have the proper procedures they need and the proper prints. And so I'll have to spend part of the day making sure all that is both up to date, accurate, and they have everything they need. And then that sometimes means coordinating with other departments because we don't want to take equipment down more than once if we don't have to. So there's a lot of coordinating, like, hey, we're taking, breaker 1602 down. Do you have anything you need to do on it? And so there's a lot of short-term coordination on that kind of stuff as well.
Pretty comprehensive, expansive. Sweet. Okay, so I'm just going to open this up now to anyone in the room. There's someone that clapped. Very nice. And if you don't feel comfortable having your video on, I guess, RJ, right, the solution to that would be to just write in the message area, right? If you can't do a reaction.
That's correct.
If you want to ask a question. Yep. Okay. Anyone? I skipped Ender. Oh my, Ender, I'm so sorry. No, I thought he didn't he? Yeah, he talked.
Yeah.
All right. Ender, you want?
Skip me over, man.
Okay, go ahead, Ender.
That's all right.
I am sorry.
Well, my typical workday looked like usually in about 7 a.m. I'm always looking over drawings from our details, in-house and outside details, looking at erection plans, making sure everything really fits up right, the erectability of certain items, making sure the field has what they need. If there's any problems, always gotta, scrounge up something else so we can figure it out. Make sure detail doing what they're doing, the field guys at work. We're always making sure that our guys are busy in the field. And then top of that, just make sure everything in the shop that's being fabricated is correct. If there's questions there, I always gotta look those over. There's a lot of times I have to look at coordination drawings of the trades, either it's mechanical, electrical. Those always usually take me more time to look over because I'm just not used to them, except steel erection plans. But I have to end up jumping into a little bit of everything just because of I have to look at the overall project from the start to finish. My projects usually last so far about 3 to 5 years. Not that I've completed one yet from start to finish, just in the process of it, but it's a jog and not a sprint. So it always takes some time.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry for that, Ender. Okay, Julie, would you like to ask your question?
Sure. And I think Lucas had one in the chat that was sort of similar for that. But basically, what would you tell a soon-to-be graduate starting their new job in the middle of a pandemic? What advice would you give them now that you know so many years out, not necessarily on your first job still? What advice would you give them to prepare for this? Anyone who wants to answer first.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Sheila. Okay, I'm just make sure you're unmuted. Hold on. Uh-oh. Why is it? RJ, can you unmute? I'm trying to find Sheila on the list here. Okay, you're unmuted. Yep.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name. Who asked the
Julie.
question? Julie.
This is
Hi,
Julie.
Julie. I'm
Yeah.
Sheila. I'm not sure what your degree is in, but as far as preparing for the pandemic in your career, I believe if you have, SUNY Canton has probably prepared you quite well to kind of open up a world of possibilities for yourself. And it is kind of hard in the pandemic, but believe it or not, depending on what type of career you're in, there's a lot more jobs out there than you think. And I, without knowing your actual degree you're getting from the school, the engineering school itself, I would think that you've been given many tools and just use them creatively along the way. And don't be afraid to call up people. That's actually how I got my first job. I scoured papers or, the advertisements or the Indeeds, but sometimes it was a good old fashioned phone call. And don't be afraid to network some other people that you've maybe made some connections with, or you've mentored you through your program at SUNY Canton. And I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you. I'm actually the Director of Career Services, Sheila. I'm sorry, I should have introduced myself, but you gave perfect advice. Thank you. Because
I used to work in the admin office.
You got it. You got it right down, because some of them we're hearing from students, they get discouraged. The market is a little bit in flux right now, even though we had a fairly good response on Tuesday for our career fair. There's still some companies that are a little more conservative at this time because there's so much.
Depends on the companies and what type of industry you're going into. And there's some that are exploding, some that aren't. I'll give myself an example. When I went to SUNY Canton, or there's any students that are listening, when I started there, I started my first semester in June of 1993. And I went as liberal arts, and I had it in my mind before I got there that I was either going to take civil engineering or HVAC. And I had two older brothers that had gone there prior to me that had done construction engineering. And I did my prereqs that semester. And halfway through it, I decided I did want to be I wanted to pursue the civil engineering, not the HVAC. And half of that decision at the time was the economy in the HVAC industry wasn't doing very well. So that being said, it's kind of could be reversed, so the cycle goes around. And I think that Canton's taught me a lot of tools to reinvent myself, and there's a lot of different skills that you can have and you can use along the way. And really you may have to prepare yourself to not to get the dream job right away. Maybe take a little lower pay. And that's how I started. And I started, gradually, and it paid off. At one point I was a project manager, and I was making, I forget about my money, but, I had 22 employees underneath me for a large company in the United States. I just have smaller children right now, so I've scaled back, and I'm happy just doing a bridge by myself and being home every night. So
that's awesome. Thank you.
Hey, and just to chime in on that too, I know for me, when I was just applying when it wasn't COVID, it was 40 to 50 applications that I had put out, and I only heard back from something like 5 of those employers, which is really sad. So I think patience and persistence and tenacity, I think those are really good just skills to have when you're trying to apply for a job in COVID. And I know that from, just taking what you have at Canton, you have really great skills. And I think the students that are in COVID learning right now, where it's mostly online, you're actually going into a job with this virtual mindset already, which is huge, because so many of us had to learn how to go virtual, how to go completely remote, and how to excel that way. And so I think that's a huge skill that, people potentially don't recognize that they have.
Great.
Anyone else for that one? Question? No. Okay, we have a question from Owen. And Owen's asking, how hard was, and this is for Ender actually, how hard was it to go from your schooling in Canton to multiple forms of engineering in your job, right? From mechanical to civil?
Yeah. Well, I didn't think it was too hard because I'm not really doing like calculations or superstructure analysis or anything like that. And that's really left to our PE that we have. So once the drawings are submitted, we send it to our PE for calculations, and we submit those drawings and calculations to the general contractor for approval. But it's also just all I really look at everything is statics and strength of materials, which were two classes that I wasn't too fond of when I was in school. But that's all I'm doing now, really, just looking at everything. There are times where a section might not work, and I have to just make up something. Me and the project manager work together to make up something and see how something might work. The erectability of in a tight spot, or it's really a matter of figuring things out. But going from mechanical to structural / civil engineering now, it wasn't a big transition, but it kind of threw me off when I was here at first, just because I wasn't used to anything we're doing here. But it took a lot of just questions and more questions and more questions, and asking people that are more experienced than I am, saying, hey, what does this mean? Or how does this work? Or what do you think about this? You know, sometimes you just gotta throw out a crazy idea, and that crazy idea might just work, and it has in the past with me. So it's just a matter of just thinking things through, and you know, if you have a question, you have a thought, just blur it out, really. It might work, might not work, but it's just a matter of asking questions, staying persistent with everything, and doing homework. I mean, when I first started, my general manager, he gave me a textbook, and he said, hey, go home and read 50 pages a night of this. So I did that, and it helped me out a lot in the long term. And short term, I really don't want to read it. I just got out of school. You know, I know what I'm doing, but you need to set your ego aside and just keep learning. That's another thing too. You gotta, you know, you're never really gonna stop learning until you're, I guess, extremely experienced in your career. But I learn every day. I learn something new every day. So you gotta keep on learning and keeping your mind open to new things.
All right. Thanks, Cinder. Okay. So let's see here. Did anyone else want to say anything to that? Do they feel like they kind of drifted out from what they anticipated in graduating with and working in? No?
No.
Okay. All right. And then
Actually, I do want to add, I'm sorry, I do want to add. What it's actually did is it actually expanded my mind that I can do other things, because I've actually thought about going to electrical or mechanical engineering, to be honest, even at 45 years old.
Yeah, so a lot of that core content is very transferable.
Yes.
You know, the critical thinking aspect.
Mm-hmm.
So we have one from Dr. Craig. How often have you all asked for help or advice? Students seem to be afraid to ask. So please let us know your experience.
Ask every 5 minutes.
Yeah. The main thing is you're working with engineers. A lot of you will be working around seasoned engineers. And if anyone's going to know that you don't know what you're talking about, it's probably engineers. So you do not be afraid to say, I don't know. That is going to be one of the most useful things you'll be able to say when you first get into the field, is admit when you don't know something, ask questions, because that's how you're going to learn. And if you try to act like you know when you don't, you will get found out very quickly.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, go ahead, Sheila.
He said not my exact answer, but very close to it. It's actually funny that you asked this question, came up, whoever posed it. My experience when I was at SUNY Canton, the former dean and my reinforced concrete design teacher, Thomas Dalton. We were, at the time when I went to Canton, there was 50 guys and me, but he had given us an assignment that had taken us for a whole semester. It was one of those things, like, he gave us it, he threw it all at us, but he purposely didn't give us like half the information. And like normal students, we waited till pretty much almost the end, till it was due. We're sitting down in the lab, everybody's panicking, me and like 12 other gentlemen, and they're like, oh, we can't. I said, we're missing all this information, because now we're getting serious. We don't have this, we don't have this, we don't have that. I'm like, well, we can't. He said, well, you guys didn't ask questions that day. You can't ask questions anymore. And I thought to myself, I'm like, first of all, I'm going to school here. Who says I can't go ask him a question because I can't do the work? So I went and knocked on his door that day. All right. And it took me like an hour or two because he was the dean at the time to actually get into the meeting. Long story short, he made me ask the question in class, and he laughed at all the people in the room. He said, you know, you send this little girl from Syracuse up and not one of you could ask the question. And he gave us the answer that day, and it actually gave me the confidence. And you have to, every engineer knows if you're not asking the right question, but I also can phrase it, even if you don't have a PE, you may know a question that a PE or the engineer has overlooked too. So never doubt yourself, and don't ever doubt it that maybe you should question something you think is wrong, or if you don't know the answer, always speak up. The worst thing that's going to happen is that you learned that something new, that you weren't right or you were a little bit wrong. That's it.
Yeah, good stuff. Let's see. Anyone else want to speak to that? Let's go, Matt.
I guess I can chime in quickly, but I echo everything that's been said already. So I know most of my days are asking questions to people that potentially have the expertise that I don't. So a lot of times I'm working on rigging calculations, and we don't get taught rigging in mechanical engineering technology. And that was something that I really had to learn on the job. And I think that kind of factors into the whole on-the-job training aspect that a lot of positions have nowadays. You know, you're going into a new role in an early career, you're not expected to know everything, and you should be asking questions all the time so that you are getting the right answers, the right information, so that you can appropriately execute the projects that you're working on. So yeah, I ask questions all the time. And I still consider myself very early career, so it's still very acceptable. So
I
yeah,
still ask him
be
too.
afraid that. Exactly. Yes, we all do.
I've been doing it for 26 years now, so.
Yeah. Okay, we did get a question. Okay. I've been taking, it's from Thomas. I've been taking adult trade courses since I was 10. Currently, I hold certifications in DOT, welding, small engine repair, and concrete plant/field inspection. How valuable are engineers with trades?
Very. Sorry. I got to do the
Trade background, engineer with a trade background, they specified in there. Sheila, do you want to expand on that, or maybe Ender?
Yeah, I do. I'm sorry. I forgot I have to raise my hand.
Oh, no, you can do it. We took care of that, but yeah.
I already raised my hand, but I forget I have to do that on the screen. Yes, it's actually very, very highly desirable and valuable. It's again, what we've already kind of talked about, you know, that certain parts of engineering are kind of universal, but having trade skills are, you know, immense. Like this person's already talked about having DOT welding skills. What was the other two he mentioned?
Small engine repair, concrete plant, and field inspection.
Okay. And this is a gentleman that speaks my language. Yes, Thomas, those skills are definitely very valuable. And it's just a matter of learning a little bit more of the engineering side, where you know the technical, you know the physical side of how it comes out. Now you just have to figure out, you know, the actual mathematics and that kind of process ahead of the technical part, you know. But they're great skills to have, and engineering companies would love them. But you know, they're skills that are invaluable, especially like for somebody like me. I'm a construction inspector. That's what I've been doing most of the last 10 years of my life. It would be great to have an inspector that I know that had, you know, welding experience, you know, even bridge inspections, that's a great, you know, but I would say that, you know, starting, you know, into a program at SUNY Canton would only excel those skills for you.
Yeah, a lot of welding inspectors really don't know how to weld.
No, they don't. I tried
Yeah.
it and I don't know. I can inspect one, but I can't weld, you know?
Yeah. Well, I agree with what you're saying because especially doing what I'm doing, like I know a lot of the background rather than the practical. So I'm in a position where now I'm trying to figure out the practical side of things and how the erectability of steel, or how we can put something in. How does weld go? I know the basics, but there's still a lot more for me to learn. And I ask my field supers all the time, hey, what do you think about this? How do you do this? Or so if you know the welding procedures, if you know the hands-on stuff, it's just a matter of knowing what the technical part is now, or the stuff that the field doesn't see. But to a certain extent, after some time, you know, being a project manager, especially, you know, in the industry, I'm in steel construction, you end up having
Exactly.
both the field and the office, really.
Yep. I agree. Well said. Better than me.
I think to add to that too, so my background being in wind, I actually did a wind turbine technician internship just after I got out of school. And that was probably the best thing I could have ever done. I'm a firm believer of getting your hands dirty, being the boots on the ground person, so that when you're in a design engineering role, or for me, like a repair engineering role, I now have these skills of knowing what actually goes on with maintenance and services from a technician perspective. So if there's any sort of hands-on training that you can do, or just general knowledge expansion that is going to complement your engineering skills and your degree, that is 100% something that you should go for. And I know for me, that made me a more marketable candidate to say, oh, I have this technician background. Mind you, it was only a summer's worth of technician work, but it still led me into a position where I can be much more successful and empathetic towards the repairs that I'm putting forward to the technicians that are actually going to perform them in the future.
All right. So hopefully that was helpful for you, Thomas. Let's see here. Yeah. Says thank you. Cool. Any other questions from other people here in the room? Okay, here's another one from Dr. Craig. How have you handled a bad situation in terms of an agreement or feeling uncomfortable? Have you experienced this at all?
Yeah, I could answer this.
No, not me first. You go first.
Okay, thank you. Well, how I handle a bad situation, it could have been in terms of like promised dates to general contractor, or we fabricated something and it was totally wrong because of some miscommunication, and it just takes a bit of, like, you just gotta be honest and understand what happened and how to fix it, and being uncomfortable about it, because you don't want to look like you don't know what you're doing. You want to go into everything with all the information you have or can get. But there are times that happens to me, you know, here and there, that something happened and I don't know what happened to it. I don't know how we came to that situation. But it's a matter of backtracking everything, getting all the facts, and, you know, trying to go back to old emails, even if they're 3 months old. Somebody probably said one thing and it was a domino effect. So it really just comes down to understanding what happened and knowing how to fix it. And that just takes a little bit. It takes a bit of honesty, and it takes a bit of understanding, like, hey, yeah, like, I kind of messed up on this. So what can I do to fix it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sheila?
I agree with that 100%. but also that question could go either way. Sometimes you didn't make a mistake. Sometimes somebody else did, and things can be, you can get put in a confrontation you didn't even want to be put in the middle of. And it can, you can feel a little uncomfortable, but you have to make sure that you know what you're talking about and that you've done your research in order to get yourself out of that conversation. And it's a little bit of confidence, but at the same point, you have to know your facts when you're in those conversations. And if you know whatever was, and even it could even be with a contractor, it could be with your boss, it could be with whoever. And maybe you do make mistakes. Everybody needs to be honest. And one thing I always do when I work on jobs, people have a tendency to always like pit sides against each other. And I'm not that type of person. You have to kind of look and you have to come up, you just have to fix it. Something's wrong, something's broken, and you just have to keep it civil and work in mind that, this is not a personality contest and it's not an enemy contest. We're here to do a job, and sometimes something's messed up that we need to fix. We all need to kind of get along and get it done, because that's what's the most important thing is the product.
Right, for sure. Anyone else want to speak on that?
What I would have said too is just being in this industry, you learn how to put out fires very quickly because it just happens all the time. So it's just a matter of using the same, skills in a sense to fix whatever happened now, right? So you got to be quick on your feet. You can't slow down. You got to keep going, keep moving forward, and just making sure you're doing the right thing.
Exactly. Come up with the next solutions. Let's fix it, and then we can figure out what happened, why it happened later. That's my motto.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Were there any other questions? Okay. All right. So I'm going to ask one. All right. Were there any particular courses that you thought were challenging, but also brought out the best in you as a person? And that, Matt, that he can go to you, keep broadening it a little bit. So. Ender, do you want to say something?
You said if there's any courses that brought.
What courses in particular? Yeah. I know you mentioned statics and strengths that you didn't care for them too much, but.
Yeah, well, so coming here and starting to work here, I quickly understood that statics and strength was basically the main core classes that were necessary here just to understand that. So being that I wasn't a huge fan of it, I went home a week after starting to work here, and I went back to my notes and I was like, what is all these things, right? Because I took them sophomore year or whatever the case was. So I had to refresh my memory on it and understand, like, okay, so this is, like I totally forgot how to understand what a W 10 by 22 was. And I was like, oh, it's 10-inch depth and 22 pounds per foot, right? So, I mean, the basics of it. So, and then refresh memory on that. And then our PE that we have in-house, whenever he, sends over calculations for whatever drawing we send him, I try to understand what he's doing in there, and ask him about it too all the time. So it took a little bit of, I'm not sure what the exact word, but I don't want to say bravery, but just understand, like, hey, like, Ender, like, you didn't really pay attention to this as much in school, but now it's crunch time. You gotta just make sure you get back in the book, start learning again, and refresh your memory on everything that you've done in the past, because you're gonna need to know those skills now.
I would echo that.
Go ahead, Justin.
Sorry, yeah. So I think notable classes for me were statics, dynamics, and machine design. And I use all three of those now. I thought they were the most challenging courses that we had to take, maybe besides like thermo for mechanicals. I thought that was challenging as well. But yeah, no, I literally use them every day. I have textbooks behind me that you can't see, like literally all of my textbooks. And I go back to a lot of notes. And I think, especially with like classes that I think I had Miller and Dr. Craig for, we were prompted to keep great notes. And I think Doc had put it in the chat as well. Keeping good notes, actually keeping textbooks, because I refer to that all the time. And I think another thing that I refer to just beyond our textbooks is if you've taken the FE exam and you have the review manuals and the practice problems, you can go back to those notes, if you will, and review content to be able to get yourself to work through a problem, even if you don't have the knowledge about the problem. But yeah, statics, dynamics, and machine design are the three that stick out to me for sure.
And I'll just chime in as well to basically reiterate what everyone else is saying, that you can't take too many notes ever. And you need to take them well, and they don't be sloppy with it. They need to be organized, and that's true in school and especially professionally. My first 5 years out of school, I was in the manufacturing industry, and even now in the utility industry, I can tell you with all my experience that documentation is very important, and that includes stuff that goes wrong. Like if you try something to fix a problem and it doesn't work, those notes are just as important as the notes for whatever it is that works, because years down the road, potentially, you could be asked, well, why didn't you try this? And if you can actually say, well, here's why I didn't do that. And that is very valuable information that can save someone a lot of time and energy down the road. So yes, take notes, keep notes, and don't expect to stop, because you're going to keep doing it and it's going to be useful.
Yeah, I see Dr. Craig said engineering format. I 100% agree, because we have our own formats here, and if you don't do it the right way in the beginning, you're gonna get confused later on. So staying organized, that's what engineering format really taught me when I was doing it all the time.
Okay, well, Sheila, was there a class for you, or?
Yeah, I was just waiting for everybody to talk. First, I'm going to go off the note thing, then I'll talk about the class. I will say I have every single notes that I ever took still in my basement from SUNY Canton. Unfortunately, I didn't keep all the textbooks, so sometimes they're not necessarily it's too helpful, but at least I like to look back sometimes, go, wow, I knew all this math, especially my structural steel book. I like. But also at the same point, when I graduated from SUNY Canton, and even in my summers when I was going to college there, I worked as a TCI for the New York State Thruway Authority, which is a temporary construction inspection position. I have every single field book that I've ever had. And honestly, it's a survey book that we use. I like the hardcover Write in the Rain books. Sorry, they're more expensive, but I still use them. And I have and I could tell you anything I did, and I have my own ways. They may not be the 100% way I was taught at SUNY Canton, but it worked for me in the job I ended up in 98%, well, I should say 85% of my career. But as far as the hardest course that I shouldn't say the hardest, the one that challenged me the most was soil mechanics. I really had a hard time getting past it. Was just dirt. And it took me, I didn't fail it. I just really mentally, it was a switch in my head. I thought it was just dirt. How could it be this complicated? And then I made myself practice the equations and learn the material, like really get the math behind it. And then a light bulb finally went off. And, the rest is history, so to speak. But I had no problem with any other courses. That was the one that really it was dirt. I couldn't get past for about 2 months.
Nice. So we actually have a question for Matt. All right. With technology changing so quickly, how do you keep up to date with the newest formats, design standards, etc.?
Okay, I'll kind of loop it back into the last question a little bit.
Yeah.
For me, computer programming, I'm sort of artistic minded, so math and science were not strong things for me. And so these classes kind of taught me there's no substitute for planting your butt in a chair and figuring it out and working through it and getting help. You know, if you got to go get some tutoring, ask questions to figure these things out, it's going to help you later on. Because, you know, when I started as a graphic designer, we didn't have classes in GMD pertaining to print. So a lot of this was learning on the job, you know, formatting files, making sure, you know, inks were set properly, the files were formatted right, designs were made properly for printing, because then you get printers saying, hey, you gotta go fix this because this isn't right. And so keeping up with technology, it's always changing. And I'd say that's the versatility of SUNY Canton, is that you're going to learn, you know, a general all around view of whatever program you're going into and maybe some other things peripherally. But you're going to learn, you're going to have to teach yourself some of these things, and you're never going to know everything. You know, even with software, it's always changing, but at least if you have a pretty good base of what you're supposed to be doing and what you need the software to do, you can probably figure out what you need to do if, you know, it's a brand new program or something. Even with the Adobe products, they're constantly changing. There's constantly updates, there's constantly new features. And, you know, I'm constantly learning new things about it that I can do that makes my life a lot easier. And so I think, you know, also keeping your head on a swivel and just seeing what other things are going on, what other designers are doing, or what other, you know, graphic designer or, you know, other fields are doing with graphic design, at least, you know, my field, always kind of keeps me moving forward and changing and trying to change my design so I don't get too locked into a certain way of doing things. You know, don't be afraid to try something different. And, you know, if you don't understand something, putting in the seat time to try and figure it out and, you know, understand what's going on.
Right, nice. I think one other thing to tie in off of that, so we have this transition from SUNY Canton into professional life. You guys do mention learning on the job. What other things do you do for continuing ed, for continuing education? Are there classes that you sign up for, webinars? What advice do you have for students that once they're out, you know, you have your older textbooks, but how do you stay sharp?
So I think for me, from an industry perspective, I try and keep up with the industry with webinars and professional societies. I think there's a lot of value in being a part of the Society of Women Engineers, the Women of Renewable Industries and Sustainable Energy, the ASME, the National Society of Professional Engineers. There's a lot of organizations out there that do, you know, what you would see for continuing education credits for something like a person with a professional engineering license. And you're allowed to sit in on those classes. And then beyond that too, there's refreshers that you're looking for, certificate programs, master's programs that you're looking to get into. That's another way that you can pretty easily keep up with just how to run problems and how to solve problems. But yeah, for me, a lot of it has been professional societies.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, sorry.
I guess Matt, you go.
Okay.
Matt,
For the
go
graphic
ahead.
design field, I tend to be more doing tutorials and looking at what other designers are doing, you know, reading articles and things and like what the new design trends are and trying to at least be aware of what's going on. Again, you know, tutorials, the internet, there's just so much information out there that you can use to help keep you, you know, up to date on things.
Okay, yeah. Inder?
Well, what I was gonna say, I just go on the internet and just like look up something I'm interested in that I did that day, seeing how other people did, or asking my boss questions, asking the field guys questions, or you know, picking up the updated welding procedure book and seeing how I can learn you know, different welds and understanding how the field works. So that's what I'm trying to always learn and trying to figure out. So it's a matter of just asking questions and making sure, like, hey, you know, what would be beneficial for me, and I know what, and I want to know what could be beneficial for the company in the long run. So it's a matter of, you know, understanding the Ironworkers Handbook, or was it AISC, building code, welding procedure standards. So things like that. Whenever I'm interested in something or something pops up that day, I kind of want to look into it and kind of gain more information about it, so then I know I won't forget it when it comes down the road when I'm going to need it.
Okay, thanks, Cinder. Sheila or Brian?
Yeah, I'll chime in for a second. Oh, go ahead,
No,
Sheila.
go ahead. No, you know what, Brian, go ahead. You haven't spoken very much. Please, I feel bad. We've been hogging your career. Go ahead.
That's all right. What I would say is to kind of elaborate, also double back on some of the questions that were asked earlier. Let's say your first job out of school is not that's what you thought you were going to do. Like me, my major was in alternative renewable energies engineering, and my first job was in manufacturing. So I became a process engineer. That wasn't on my radar, but the main thing is whatever field you're in at that moment, I would recommend that should be your focus. So I focused a lot on going to Six Sigma training and Green Belt and all that other stuff, because that's what applied to my job at that time. And that helped me, that kept all those engineering skills, sharpened and all that learning, ready to go. And it helped me progress in my career. And then that experience actually was allowing me to translate into the utility industry later on. And now that I'm here, I'm focusing my training on that, and that's helping me progress even further here and to be better at my job here. So that's my long-winded advice of you may not be in what you thought was going to be your dream job right away, but commit to that and focus on that, because that's going to help keep your skills sharp, and it's going to help you progress further, which will open up more opportunities than you ever imagined later on.
I was going to echo exactly what Brian just said. As long as wherever you land, just do your job and try to do it the best, and read up as much as you can in whatever subject you've been given, regardless if it's a different type of, you learn it as much as you can, and try to participate in a few societies if you can. I found some of those societies over the years have been nothing. It's some of them turn into social clubs. So you want to pick your the choices of which ones you actually join and which ones you don't. But really just doing your job and keep reading up on everything. And, the background is engineering, and we always get a whole bunch of reading to do, don't we? Once we leave Canton, before and after.
Yeah. Okay. All right, we have another question from Thomas. All right, odd question. Creativity is still strongly encouraged in industry, correct? Like making a biodiesel processor out of a coffee maker, creativity. Thinking outside the box. Anyone?
I'd say yes, it is. I'd say yes, it is. That's actually sometimes, that's exactly what you need in the field, is somebody. And Thomas asked a question earlier about his welding skills and his concrete skills. That's exactly, sometimes the best invention is right in the moment when you need something. So there's sometimes they're crazy ideas, but sometimes there's not too crazy an idea if it's feasible it works in the situation. And I myself have had to make many of those kind of decisions. Didn't look the same on paper than when I opened it up, especially a bridge abutment.
Okay, Jessica, Ender, Matt, Brian.
Yeah, I can
Jess?
add to that. Yeah, so I mean, in my current role, we have complete freedom to reasonably design, repair processes and tooling. And a lot of times, I gather feedback, and there's one program specifically that I can recall that we had 7 different ideas, and some of them were completely out there and very just, could we even ever do this? And we actually came back to some of those ideas and utilized parts of the ideas into what our design actually turned into. So definitely the brainstorming, the creativity aspect, nothing's out of the question when you really don't know what your end goal is in terms of what your repair is actually going to look like. But you kind of have these goals and a list of guidelines to adhere to get to the end product. but you really have a lot of freedom to get there, which is what I found.
Anyone else? Yeah,
I can add to that. So it you know, sometimes it's the simple things too. You know, I know what was said was making the biodiesel process out of a coffee maker. But that, I mean, I agree with that. That's something we have to do on a daily basis. But something on a more small scale that makes a big impact is so we have a beam line here, which is basically like a CNC CNC machine for just beams, angles, channels, etc. But you know, we figure out how to make copes into a beam. So since the axis of how the angle comes out, it's the z-axis comes towards the beam compared to when you're in the machine shop where it comes vertically. So you know, to make copes now, they want to figure out, hey, how can we make this process faster? In the beam with a torch. Instead of putting the beam with a torch or a cutting wheel or a grind wheel, whatever the case may be, we could do it on the beam line and do it that way, which makes the process, cuts it in half, basically, right? Instead of somebody, guy in the shop doing it within 45, 50 minutes, it can be done in 30 seconds. So it's always something, you know, even the small things make a huge difference.
Okay.
And
All right. Yeah, go, Brian.
yeah, just to, yes, that's definitely encouraged. I can tell you every review I have ever had as out of college has had something along the lines of what have you done to improve a process or think outside the box or anything like that. Guaranteed any job, everyone here, when they get a job, you're going to find something in your job that you're going to ask the question, why do we do it? And someone's going to answer, oh, we've just done it this way for a long time. And those are the kind of things that you want to dive a little deeper and try to find out a little bit. But yes, that's encouraged, and I can almost guarantee you that it will impact your career and for the better if you are one of the people that is trying to think outside the box and make those kind of changes.
Yeah, I 100% agree. My company has been open now since 1904. So me coming here, I asked them, hey, why do we do things? They're like, oh, we did this for 100 years. And then heard that all the time. Still here today. I mean, heard it yesterday, to be honest with you. But, you know, there are times we got a new plasma table and we're starting to make stringers for stairs on the plasma table. We got a plasma table that's 20 feet long, and I figured out how to make stringers on a plasma table. So it basically turned making one stringer, which took a guy in the shop about an hour and a half to make. I figured out to make it on the plasma table and then mix it in about 7 minutes. So you're always continuing to make the company better and make the company more money. That's really what a ultimate goal of a project manager is, really.
Yeah. All right. I think we're running about like maybe 4 minutes over. I know you guys are probably busy, probably actually at work. So I'm going to wrap it up there. But I want to thank you guys all for coming. Thomas, thank you for your questions, and Owen. And then for the faculty that also participated and people in the administration. But we'll be holding another panel next year. I think Brian already said he wanted to maybe come on next year, which would be great. And we'll invite some new people. But thank you guys for taking your time out of your day to come here, everyone. All right, so thank you. But yeah, so take care and stay safe. All right.
All right. Thank you.